Wagwan, everybody. I'm the Mad White Jamaican. Welcome to Mad White Jamaican Questions Everything, where everything is questioned. A little bit about myself, since this is the first episode. This is probably the 20th take I've taken, and I'm not going to do another take on this. I'm just going to go off of the dome. Off of the dome. I'm the Mad White Jamaican. I was one of the first Jamaicans to go, I guess they call it viral on the internet. Over 20 years ago, I made a YouTube video. The algorithm seemed to favor me, and my numbers basically went through the roof. I've had millions upon millions of views and hundreds of thousands of subscribers throughout different platforms. Kept going from comedy to music to theology to government to everything. So I was commenting on everything. Come to find out, that's not how algorithms work. So even though I would get big and things go viral, I still didn't understand that you can't keep changing topics online. You can't go here and then go there and then all of a sudden expect magic. Magic doesn't work like that. I have ADHD, so my knowledge is all over the place. I like to comment on everything. I like to learn everything. That's one thing about me. I cannot stick to one thing alone. I have to do everything. Well, that's a part of having ADHD, which I am medicated for. So that's me in a nutshell. So I decided to make this channel where I question everything, where every day I try to pick a different topic to learn. And hopefully you guys can come with me. And I'm very excited to let you all know that I'm a big blood clot nerd. And certain things really get me going. So without further ado, let us go into the first of hopefully many podcasts. And I'm not doing another take. I'm going to keep that one raw and real. And if you have found me again after not seeing me 20 years, it's because I have ADHD. I can't stick to comedy. I can't stick to music. But one thing I have been able to stick to is every day learning something new. So learn with me. So before I start the video, I want to let you know why I picked this topic. I picked the topic of philosophy to start off with because I believe everything should start with a good foundation. So if we learn philosophy together, depending on where we go with this channel, we can not only be objective, but know where we came from in our objection. And hopefully we'd seem a little bit more educated when we talk about a topic or try to claim to be an authority on a topic, which is kind of impossible to do. So let's try this thing out, and I'm going to screen share. This is my first time doing it. Hopefully the audio comes through. I'm not in the mood to do this a million times over. I really am not. If this don't work, I might as well just, my ADHD just going kicking and going dash away. All right, here we go. Oh, by the way, this is a lecture from Oxford University. The gentleman's name is Peter Melanchthon, and we are going to watch The Birth of Modern Philosophy, and we're going to continue with its other videos. I actually have ChatGPT on standby, so if I don't know anything, trust me, if I don't talk to ChatGPT, my ADHD is going to send me to go cook some food and not even want to watch this anymore. So let's go. Let's get this started, all right?
It's a very interesting and important fact about history that philosophy, as we understand it, seems only to have been born once. For some reason, the ancient Greeks, instead of relying purely on historical and religious myths, started to ask about how they could understand the world rationally, not relying on tradition.
Now, let's be honest. At this point, if it's Greek philosophy, this means that we as human beings came from out of the hunter-gatherer phase. And we don't have to run around and basically hunt food. We can actually sit down and enjoy the fruits of our labor and actually start to really use our brain and think.
But relying on reason. There were, in fact, in ancient Greece, many different philosophers, many different schools. Plato and Aristotle are obviously the most familiar today, for a reason that we'll come to. But there were lots of others. The pre-Socratic philosophers, the philosophers who preceded Socrates. Socrates was the great teacher of Plato. Plato founded his academy, from where the word academic comes. The academy actually persisted for 800 years, and there were quite a lot of different philosophers through that period. Aristotle founded his own school, the Lyceum. Again, various philosophers came out of that. There were various groups of skeptics, notably the Pyrrhonian skeptics, named after the philosopher Pyrrho. Pyrrho, it is said, was so skeptical that he saw no reason for believing that falling off cliffs was dangerous.
I don't call it a skeptic. I call it an idiot. Falling off cliffs is dangerous. Mm-mm. I'm sorry. I hope he kept that. The fact that you actually know this means that he actually didn't keep this to himself. All right, let's continue. I mean, we question everything, but we really have questions for that one day.
No reason to believe that collisions with chariots were dangerous. So, allegedly.
Them crazy ass white guys. I mean, and I don't mean to bring race into it, but it's not, if somebody doing like parachute or parasail or something dangerous like swimming with sharks, it's normally somebody will look like me.
He had to be followed around everywhere by his friends who would pull him out of the way whenever he got near a cliff.
Oh yeah, that's a drunk friend. That's a drunk friend that wanted to. That guy wasn't a philosopher. That just sounded like he was just like a wild ass. That ain't no. I'm sorry. No, that brother. Me not really consider that one there a philosopher. That one they just sound like, that mad friend that that you really don't want to get drunk around, because you're going to end up doing something stupid.
Or whenever a chariot came into view. He's supposed to have lived to over 90, so I think his friends were quite successful, or maybe those stories aren't entirely true.
90 years old. Come on.
The Epicurean philosophers, the Stoic philosophers, again, very famous schools of philosophy. So there was a huge variety of philosophy in ancient Greece. Now, unfortunately for philosophy, the Roman Empire became Christianized. Through Constantine originally, of course.
Now, bear in mind, if you are triggered at this point, I do humbly apologize. I'm not the one that's saying it. That's this guy from Oxford. So just listen to what he's saying. Don't walk away. Just listen to it. If you're triggered, I'm sorry.
But later Roman emperors thought it was their moral and religious duty to actually close down the ancient schools of philosophy. So
no, wait. This is why I'm doing this course. Because people need to wake up and realize that there's nothing new under the sun. And history tends to repeat itself. And because of, I guess, a new way of thinking, they have decided to bury the old. Personally, I think that's a terrible flaw of human beings. I don't think anything should be buried. I think every book, every knowledge, everything that we can share should be shared. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not a big fan of just because I conquered you means I'm going to eradicate everything about you. And then because of that, we don't know anything about our past. But I digress. Let's continue.
For example, a lot of libraries were destroyed in 391.
I've just never been a fan of burning books, period.
In particular, the famous Library of Alexandria, which contained huge numbers of ancient writings from these Greeks, and not only philosophical Greeks, but also many great literary figures from the ancient.
Could you imagine like how much knowledge that we've actually lost because you did that? And I mean, who is a leader? Like, think about that for a second. Like, you know what I mean? That, and as human beings, we fall for this thing every time, Me conquer this place. Me find this place, like when the Europeans came to South America and then see these big old blood clot pyramids. Today, we don't even know how they made these big old blood clot pyramids in South America. We don't know it, no mortar, nothing. You know why? Because as soon as we conquered South America, we just ran to and said, you know what? I don't really like your book. Here's another book. I don't like the way you think. Here's another way of thinking. Philosophy is amazing. We really, as a society, need to go back to these conversations. This is the type of thing that we as human beings definitely need to invest a little time in. Thank you for watching this with me.
World, a huge number of their works were burned. We know about them only by report. Sometimes fragments of these are discovered. Now ways are being found.
Well, no disrespect. I can listen to an English accent all day long. I just feel like if I'm going to sit through lectures, at least it has an English accent. Terribly sorry about in the ancient world, you find that. My apologies if you're offended. This is what I need to do to entertain myself. Before my ADHD kick in.
Of actually recreating some texts even from burnt fragments. In 529 AD, all of the non-Christian schools were closed down. So
AD. What does AD stand for again? I know a lot of people say after death, but I think it's called Anno Domini. Let's ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT question: what does AD stand for? Like when somebody says 850 AD, what does that mean? Today,
Great
Junior.
question.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go on.
No worries at all. I'm always here whenever you're ready. Just let me know, and I'm happy to dive into whatever you need.
What does AD stand for? Like when I say like 500 AD, what does that mean?
Absolutely. So AD stands for Anno Domini, which is Latin for in the year of our Lord. It refers to the years after the traditional birth of Jesus Christ. So when you say 580 AD, it means the year 580 after the birth of Christ.
Can you say that in a Jamaican accent, perhaps, or did I already run out my my advanced AI talking stuff?
No problem at all. I can definitely bring that Jamaican vibe back in. So when we talk about AD, it's basically Anno Domini, meaning in the year of our Lord. So when you say 580 AD, it's just the year 580 after the birth of Christ. Simple as that, Zine.
Zine. Man, the man's as simple as that, Zine. All right. I actually ran out all my ChatGPT minutes setting up this podcast, just to let you know.
Plato's Academy, which had been going for all those hundreds of years, was closed. As a result, we have very few texts from these ancient philosophers. The ancient skeptics, for example, their work is primarily known through only 3 texts. One of them is Sextus Empiricus, Outlines of Pyrrhonism. Another is Cicero's Academica. And the third is a work by a chap called Diogenes Laertius, who wrote Lives of the Great Philosophers, with lots of little snippets describing their interesting lives and deaths. For example, one of them, allegedly, jumped into a volcano to prove that he was a god.
Did I hear that correctly? The guy jumped into a volcano to prove that he was a god. It seemed like he was friends with the other brother that just want to stand up in front of a chariot or jumping off of a cliff now got hurt. Boy, these ancient philosophers was onto something. Thank God I'm studying philosophy or listening to philosophy, because boy, me did think say all I know was genius. I thought all of you guys were smart. Jumped in a volcano to prove he was a god. Could you imagine? It's a good thing I don't have a kid. I'd probably call him Diogenes or something like that. You know? Diogenes, come to the front of the class and fill out the math problem, yeah. How why your father call you Diogenes for? I feel sorry for that kid. And I'd be the nerd to show up and say, well, I named my son off of a Greek philosopher that thought that he could jump in a volcano to prove that he was a god.
I don't think the proof worked.
No.
Another one got dropsy, and in order to cure himself, covered himself with dung and lay down in the marketplace.
What's dropsy? Echo, what is dropsy? I bet you he's not even going to know.
Dropsy is an old term that was used to describe what we now call edema, which is swelling caused by fluid accumulation in the tissues. Historically, it was a common diagnosis before modern medical advancements. It's less commonly used today, but it essentially refers to that swelling in the body.
I don't like how Echo sound like him depressed. You know, I pay for ChatGPT and I ran out of my minutes trying to set up for this podcast. And in more advanced voice though, so let me find out what's going on with you. Echo, do me a favor. When you talk to me, sound a little bit more upbeat now. Please. You sound a little depressed. You need anything?
Got it. I'll definitely keep it upbeat and lively. I appreciate the heads up, and I'm always here to bring that positive energy. So anytime you need that vibe, just let me know, and I'll keep it bright and cheery.
All right, cool.
And apparently the local dogs, not realizing what it was, came along and ate him. So for many of these ancient philosophers, all we know about them is a few snippets in Diogenes Laertius. And given that kind of story, you can see that we can't view them with tremendous authority. Plato and Aristotle were somewhat privileged. Plato, very early on, played a part in the development of Christian doctrine. If you look at Christian doctrine such as the Incarnation and the Trinity, there are clear signs of Platonic thought there. Aristotle became a great authority in the later medieval period, most famously through Aquinas. You've seen the film The Name of the Rose, or read the book, for example. You see the sort of veneration with which Aristotle was held in the later medieval period. And this synthesis of Christianity and Aristotelianism became totally dominant.
I'm gonna start using that word, Aristotelianism. Just imagine having a conversation with somebody. So, well, I think like an Aristotelian, whatever.
In the medieval monastic schools. And so we get scholasticism. So scholasticism was the movement based on Aristotle, but developed beyond Aristotle, incorporated into Christianity, and taught as orthodoxy throughout Christendom. Well, here is a sketch of Aristotle's universe. You'll see that in the story that follows, astronomy plays quite a significant role. That might seem surprising, but I'm sure you'll understand soon. The Aristotelian worldview obviously places the Earth right at the center. The Earth is surrounded by water, or largely surrounded by water. Beyond that, we have the sphere of air, then fire, then the sphere of the moon, Mercury, Venus, the sun, and so on.
Look at this. Fixed stars: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury. So Aristotle already knew about Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus. No, man, I have to ask ChatGPT that one there. Did Aristotle know about, or did the Greeks know about Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Moon, fire? Did they know about the planets?
Yes, absolutely. The ancient Greeks, including Aristotle, were quite aware of the planets that we now know. They recognized the 5 classical planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, as they were visible to the naked eye.
All right, I'm impressed.
The outermost.
Well, no. They must have some serious nighttime vision, because my eye them can barely see the stars.
Crystalline sphere contains the fixed stars, and these rotate around us, which is why we see the stars moving in the sky. There's a sharp difference between everything below the sphere of the moon and things outside. Below, in the sublunary world, we have change, decay, the sorts of things that we are familiar with in the world. Beyond the moon, everything is perfect. Things move in perfect circles. They are unchanging. That's the heavenly sphere.
I mean, from observation, that's actually pretty smart. Because obviously everything past the moon kind of works in a circle, because clouds kind of operate on their own type of thing.
And we'll see.
That's actually not a bad observation. They're getting there. Wasn't quite accurate, but they were getting there.
That it was really the breaking apart of this picture that played a very major role in the development of modern philosophy. Okay, so a number of things came about in the years between about 1400 and 1500 and a few decades thereafter.
Now we're talking about 1400, 1500 BC, before Christ.
Which
Yeah, have to be.
completely changed this intellectual landscape. Well, some ancient texts had survived. I've mentioned some of those that did, like Sextus Empiricus' Outlines of Pyrrhonism, containing all these skeptical arguments that had been developed in ancient.
Hopefully it didn't contain that idiot that feel like if him jump off a cliff, then that's not a bad thing.
In Greece. Those were lost. But some of these manuscripts remained
Could you imagine some of the ancient thought that we could benefit from today?
in the
I mean, not everything. Not everything going fly.
Byzantine world, in Constantinople. Some were translated by the Arabs and preserved in the Arabic world.
Okay, so if it's 1400, and that they were talking about the 14th century. Wait a second. How long did the Greek Empire last? Forgive me a second. I need to ask ChatGPT this, because I'm not a genius and I want to learn, and I feel like I've misrepresented stuff. Question: How long did the Greek Empire last? Because I'm watching this thing where the lecturer was talking about 1400. Is he talking about 1400 BC or AD?
That's a great question. The Greek Empire, or more precisely, the era of ancient Greece, spanned a long period. It generally started around the 8th century BCE and continued through the Hellenistic period, which ended around the 2nd century BCE. When someone mentions 1400, it's likely they're referring to 1400 BCE, which would place it in the late Bronze Age during the Mycenaean civilization. So it depends on the context, but usually that date is in the BCE era rather than AD.
So basically, that is over like about 4,000 years ago. Am I correct? Or a little bit around there?
Yes, you got it right. If we're talking about around 1400 BCE, that's indeed roughly 3,400 years ago or more. It definitely places us way back in ancient history, so you spot on with that calculation.
I mean, I just wanted to clear that up because I did not know about the ancient Greeks' idea of what the world looked like from like the moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, and so forth. I actually thought that was further on that we discovered it.
I totally get that. It's really fascinating how much the ancient Greeks understood, even without modern technology. They had a pretty impressive grasp of the visible planets and the celestial bodies, even though their understanding was limited compared to what we know today. It's amazing to see how far we've come and how those early observations laid the groundwork for modern astronomy.
Until somebody found them, didn't like them, and then burnt everything, right? Don't answer that question. I'm trying to keep it subjective.
Well, eventually, the Ottoman Turks attacked Constantinople. It eventually fell. And at that point, and prior to that, a lot of scholars fled to the West, bringing these precious manuscripts with them. So a lot of these things were rediscovered. I find it extremely interesting that manuscripts that had been hidden away all that time had this dynamite within them, such that rediscovery of them could have such a profound effect on the Western world. It really does show the value of what had been going on in ancient Greece, that their philosophical discoveries still had this power to unsettle the world. So you had the development of humanism in Renaissance Italy, a new respect for classical thought. People were trying to think through things in this new way, which was not totally dominated by the Christian Aristotelianism. Printing.
There's that word again, Aristotelianism. Ha ha. Are you an Aristotelian? I am an Aristotelian. Ha 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 ha. Shut the fuck up. Sorry, not cursing. My apologies. Let me take out that expletive.
Invented in 1450. So these manuscripts suddenly got circulated very quickly amongst scholars in Western Europe. So
it's funny. It's like, this is Oxford, so he's talking to people that are relatively smart. So when he says 1450, I really have to start thinking because, I'm sorry, sir. If you said BC, maybe I could. But when you say 1450, I'm thinking, damn, wasn't Columbus about to sail? You know what I mean?
Lucretius, De Rare Naturam, the nature of the universe.
Why do I feel like I grew up with a guy named Lucretius? Lucretius!
Covered in 1417, printed 1486. Sextus Empiricus, I've mentioned, translated into Latin 1562. Now, lots of other things at this time happened to combine. For example, population was growing. There was a lot of trade with other countries. There was the discovery of the New World. So, 1492, of course, Columbus.
See, this is why you don't listen to ChatGPT. Look here, Echo. Whatever. ChatGPT, you lead me down the wrong road. They were actually talking about the 14th and 15th century, just to let you know. Be quiet now.
Sails the ocean blue to America. This brought a lot of economic disruption. They discovered a lot of silver down in South America, started bringing it back to Europe.
They discovered silver in South America. Sure. But you went for the spices, right?
Cause all sorts of economic complications. Of course, they didn't realize what was causing this, but there was a lot of upheaval, a lot of change as a result. The realization that ancient maps were wrong. For centuries, people had been going along thinking that Aristotle and the Bible between them contained more or less the whole truth. And yet suddenly here we are discovering whole new parts of the world that aren't mentioned at all.
You see, this is why I believe in knowledge and learning, you know. Because when it comes to things like map and figuring out things, that's a bit different. You know what I mean?
Aristotle or the Bible. It's bound to cast some doubt on the ancient authorities. Cultural relativity. You start meeting people who have other religious beliefs or other scientific beliefs. They don't think the way we do. Well, that's bound to make you ask, if you're at all reflective, how confident can we be that our views are right and theirs are wrong?
Oh, we're pretty confident, buddy.
Technology, gunpowder, centralization of power. Again, imagine what a difference it makes once gunpowder has been discovered. It is no...
But we never even invented. The guy that's using the gunpowder over there never even invented the damn thing. It was the Asians. It was the Chinese. You know what I mean?
No longer the case that somebody can simply sit walled up in their castle and wait for the enemy to go away. Fundamental change in the technology of warfare inevitably brings big...
Oh, so that's how they used to fight wars back in the day. Man stand outside your gate and I try to break down your stone wall. And him just give up fighting like him run out of food and run away.
Political differences. And the very fact that Constantinople had fallen was partly due to this discovery. So some of these things you might think, well, how can they have an effect on the history of thought? Well, the effect is to cause this massively complicated upheaval in all sorts of areas of life. Suddenly doubt is cast on all sorts of assumptions that people have taken for granted for generations. A nice example of this, I think, is the Mappa Mundi. This is a famous map. It's in Hereford. It dates from about 1290. And it's based on the writings of Erosius, who was a pupil of St. Augustine. So this was based on a theory going back sort of 800 years. And the view of the world had basically not changed over that time. That's the whole world. Jerusalem is at the center of it.
Oh,
now imagine that you have that kind of teaching that's come down for all those many hundreds of years, completely unchanged. And then suddenly people start bringing back stories of far distant lands, America, with lots of tangible evidence of a very different new world. It's bound to have a profound effect on your worldview. And then, of course, along came the Reformation. So in 1517, Luther rebelled against the Church of Rome. Quite a number of things. One of them was his objection to the selling of indulgences. So if you were a churchman, you could get one of your parishioners who'd done something wrong. You would persuade them that if they paid lots of money to the church, that it would go better for them in the afterlife.
No comment. He took indulgences. You know, you can get off if you just pay me.
And this was clearly an abuse. It was very widespread. It's one of the things Luther protested against. Many parts of Europe, especially Northern Europe, quickly became Protestant.
Could you imagine that? Paying money for God to forgive you, and you end up dying, and then you're gone to heaven, and God say you can't come in, and you sit down there with your little broke self, give all your money to the church, and be like, I paid the priest. He said it was okay. I mean, come on, buddy. That was a nice, sweet piece of pork.
And of course, Luther wasn't.
And that's the dumb things I want to lock you up for, like pork and something like that. Goodness me.
The only influence, people like Calvin and John Knox and so on. But you ended up getting huge, savage wars.
And imagine that they say, oh, sorry, we let you in for the pork, but you're wearing polyester with cotton. It doesn't work.
30 Years' War, which was mainly fought over German lands. The Civil War in England. These were extremely vicious, nasty wars, going on for a long time, setting family against family, and so forth. In 1648, you get a peace eventually, but it's described as a peace of exhaustion. People are so fed up with all the religious war. They don't want to go on killing each other. There isn't really a settlement in any theoretical sense. It's not as though one side wins and the other loses. They just agree to differ. So in the German lands, you get an agreement that essentially everybody has to obey the religion of their prince. So if I live in a particular area and my prince happens to go Roman Catholic or Protestant, I have to follow. And that clearly is just a compromise intended to stop the killing. Now imagine in the middle of all this, you read stuff written by these ancient skeptics, in particular Sextus Empiricus.
He keeps saying this word Sextus Empiricus, and I'm thinking this video is going to get flagged.
And you naturally get to asking yourself this sort of skeptical question.
What is Sextus Empiricus? At least ChatGPT can help us out with that. What is Sextus Empiricus, if I said it right? I mean, could you imagine? And if somebody's name was Sextus?
You're close. It's actually Sextus Empiricus. He was an ancient Greek philosopher who was one of the most prominent proponents of skepticism. He lived around the 2nd century CE and wrote extensively about skeptical philosophy, questioning the possibility of certain knowledge. His works have been really influential in the development of skepticism throughout history.
Okay, thank you.
The problem of the criterion. Okay, I'm faced with two different people. One person says the criterion of truth is religious tradition as taught by the church. The other person says the criterion of truth is the word of God acting on you when you read the Bible.
Doesn't really change, does it? Seems about the same.
Okay, how do I know which criterion is right? I've got
Science.
the Roman Catholic criterion, I've got the Protestant criterion. What I'm looking
I'm sorry if you're triggered. My apologies.
for is some criterion for judging between them. But that is to ask for exactly the thing that I'm looking for. How can any criterion of reliable knowledge be chosen unless we already have some reliable criterion for making that choice? So this was a problem highlighted by the ancient skeptics and communicated to modern ages by Sextus Empiricus. Had a big, very profound effect.
So it looks like it's the end of that lecture. That's a nice way to start it off. I like it. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And please, by all means, tell me in the comment section what you want me to react to and learn. Let's learn together, shall we?